So when we need to write an inequality, we're going to look through the problem to help us find some of the keywords. All of these ideas that we just wrote down for the meaning of each of our four inequality symbols are going to be the keywords that we're looking for. If we can find those within the problem, we're going to know how to write our inequality, what sign we need to use. So if we look at the first example, all real numbers x less than or equal to -7. Well, I see that we have an x, so that tells me what my variable is. And I have -7, what I'm comparing it to. The question now is, what symbol do I put in the middle of it? Well, I looked through the problem to find one of these keys. It could be the actual name of one of the symbols or one of the words, like at most or at least, something that'll clue me in as to which one of these four is going to work. In this case, I see less than or equal to. So I know that's telling me exactly what symbol to use. So that is the symbol that we need to be using. Now, sometimes our inequalities are going to be more than just one variable. So we have to be thinking about the ideas that we used last unit when we were writing equations. Letter B is an example of this. If we see 6 less than a number k, well, before I can do anything, I have to figure out what that half of the inequality is going to look like. Well, less than, if we remember, was a symbol for subtraction. So if I want 6 less than k, well, I know that turned into k minus 6. So that tells me half of my problem. And I know I'm going to have a 13 on the other side. Again, now the question is, what do I put in the middle? Which of my inequality signs? So I look for an inequality code, and I see greater than. So whatever came first has to be greater than 13. We can do the same thing when we have scenarios. Only difference is going to be we have to define a variable before we can actually start writing everything. So this first one, the restaurant can seat at most 172. So the first thing I have to do is ask, well, what am I talking about here? Well, if we're talking about seating, we could say that our variable x equals, let's say, the number of people. You could say something like the chairs, the number of patrons that can be seated, something that describes the scenario for you. So now I know that I'm comparing the number of people that are being able to be sat to 172, since that's the number that's showing up. My question now is, what do I put in the middle? Well, I see at most. So I'm going to go back up to my chart and look for where does at most fill? Well, I see at most is part of less than or equal to. So that must be the sign that I need. And I can check myself by plugging in a number and seeing if it makes sense. If I have a number that's less than 172, well, let's pick 100. Could this restaurant seat 100 people? Yeah, since the most it can do is 172. But could it seat 200 people? Well, no, it would run out of seats, so that wouldn't be an answer. So we know that that's going to be the right piece. So what you should do now is try the rest of the writing inequality section and also the modeling scenario one. When you finish that, check your answer on what I've got on Schoology, then move on to the next section of the notes.